the Nukuda, I'm saying, Punkt, when I get to the part of relation, is not verstehen, wie der Hemschchat waren. But by even Kali, wie es weiß zu Chais, one part is that but other chas, the Indian of the Maamar Adin Kes is the Indian Helen. You know, the Maamar Adin Tachlis is Indian Agilui. That the airing stuff is made in Mizgal B'Kamot. Maamar Adin Kes is verkehrt the fact that the Indian is almas, that the could be an effort of his almas. So there's and the fact that the air could be misalim, that's a higher ilui than the Indian Agilui, which is there. And the Rebbe speaks common darkness in the Indian Helen. So the etzim when you get to the Arab Ligvul, which the Pula says since the Arab League was that there was the siluk is almost a the got that Indian the mile is that the fact that the air could be an eifin of Helim, that's nevea mitzad the Indian iskalus batzmusis bar. Mitzad the air the way it's together gili can shazam behelim. The fact that the ufta of tzimtzum is the fact that the air could be siluk doesn't mean that the air was nostalgic from Miram Tzil. The air is an eifin of Helim. The fact that the air could be nimtza ba'if and the eifin of Helim, that's nevea mitzad that the iskalus air batzmusis bar. The air the way it is mitzad the Maamar, mitzad that is not muchrach that it should be an eifin of Hergish. That's the ili of Helim mitzad the etzin of Siluk. The Gabi the Arab Ligvul. The verstehen wie es Lepel has to do with the Leshanisi also, even though it's not the word that the Rebbe is matkish. The Leshanisi, the Rebbe is matkish, the word is that it's be'en arech, the Arab Ligvul, the Gabi the Arab Ligvul. But the Gabi the Arab Ligvul, the Indian Tzimtzum, he's not mishtana. How's he mishtana the Tzimtzum? Because the Rebbe says a lashon there that he's begili even mitzad the Tzimtzum. I mean, the Tzimtzum is not pel any shin in the Gabi him, the Gabi the Arab Ligvul. And the fact that the tzimtzum, this almost does not get him any shini in the air, that's mitzad the fact that the air is a prat and atzvus. The air the way it is mitzad Maamar. The air the way it be mitzad the gather of air, then tzimtzum would be a stira to the air. Because air in yan is gilu, his pashtus. And Helim is a tnuah that is hepechai his pashtus, would be a shini in there. So the mile of Helim, the Arab Ligvul, is that the Indian Helim brings the fact that the air is nimtza. Even though the Mekabel is not margish there, the air is nimtza, it's not mishtana, that's in that's neveh, it's the fact that the air is the way he is inside the Maamar. This prat is clear. As it that's clear. There's prat in there, but that's what I think is that prat. I'm going to get, then the Rebbe speaks in that tzimtzum Eir HaGvul. And Eir HaGvul is an underword. The ufta of tzimtzum Eir HaGvul is, that's also what the Rebbe brings at the beginning, that l'chos in that tzimtzum Eir HaGvul most of the kula. So what's the Rebbe mean, Maktim? The Rebbe is bringing out a mile in tzimtzum. That tzimtzum is not just in of his almos. The fact that on tzimtzum was cheshares gebracht der Eir HaGvul. The fact that ein sabash lemus de kula and he's also kel Eir HaGvul, that's his gala der tzimtzum. And the Rebbe says this word of Eir HaGvul, that's dafki since he's ein sabamitius, but it's nishayches legabe of shum teir and vagbolis. But mainly it's not only Eir HaGvul, also Eir HaGvul. So the fact that the air can also come on Eifin of Eir HaGvul, that brings out the amitis ein sof of the air, of the ein sof. And that's dafkin is gala der tzimtzum. The fact that the air could be nimshach and elimis without being shayl of them, that's the mile of Eir HaGvul. Eir HaNesim Makom Limtzias, that's dafkin is gala der tzimtzum. So that's the mile of the Indian Ahelim, the way it is inside the Eir HaGvul. Yeah? And then there's the third Indian that even that the Inyani Aprimi of Tzimtzum Gufetz is Shulagibir. The Inyani Aprimi of the Metzias is in order for is that the Ein Sof is not Mugder and any tzir, it could also be an Indian of Metzias. Huh? Oh, derech Indian of the Magid. That's the Techim Primi of Gvul Gufa. That's the Techim Primi of Gvul Gufa. And the Magid, we'll see that it could be a more general word. But der Wörter verstandig? It's clear this Indian. Good. Here is Shinananda Zach. This goes back a little bit to the Baal Shem Tov, but let's see the same. So he nemeshli shanisi afak became and again like hilu bihila abehelam acheren. Okay, but that's viful nishmiret. So what's the Rebbe saying? Even though that mitzvah in that seems to show like hilu, you're at masbig event that even mitzad Rav. The mitzvah Talmud Guf is also by Mesas Cholok, because the whole kavanah is the theory of Kamesi that the Talmud Guf should be nesala. That the gvul gufa should be nesached with the gvul. So mitzad amitis inyan, the gvul is never a nituk from the Eitz of Velakus, because the guf is that's all mitzad amitis that the mitzad amitis of bligvul of Velakus, even the gvul could be a keli to bligvul. But that's mitzad amitis inyan. But begoli lepoil in of hell, lepoil the Talmud hertish the isgalusara. Now the Rebbe is adding here, so that's we're the fact that the fact that the Helen is not the Talmud, let's say, or the Yesh is not a tnuah of pure Tzimalakus. That's all. That means that the mitzvah in. but mitzad the Indian, the way it's nireh begoli, the way it's nireh bechitzenius, it's a tnu of Helam Hester. And then the Rebbe is saying, we're saying, Kanal Teres Abal Shem Tov, there's a nekud of Helim, which in Yoni is not Bishul Agili. It's not Stam as a first. We're saying the Seder, there's there's the Seder, there's the Mata and Tachas, there's the way Matas is Nerakav, there's the way it's Nelim is Saint Sof, the way it's Natzilis, the way it's Simbia. So Al Derech is the inner of Helen, the way it's an Eretz of Abligvol, there's in of Helen. If you learned in the Maamar, the Rebbe Friedrich speaks about the Mata and the Tachas, he also speaks in such a way. There's the Mata and the Tachas and Tzfiris and Ketz, and then there's the Acharat Tzimtzum, Dargis. Al Derech is the Helam Achar Helam, mitzad the Era Abligvol, the Era Gvol, the Inyan at Tzimtzum, the way it is inside Amitas Inyan. And then there's the way you look at it, the way it's Nireh B'chitzenius. The way it's Nireh B'chitzenius, not mitzad the Amitas Inyan, the way it's Nireh B'chitzenius, the Inyan HaHelam is the Inyan of Hedra Hergish Elokus, or Tnu of Nitik from Elokus. And then there's Nishtal Shal HaHelam, which in Yon is taken up B'shul HaGili, mitzad the nature of the Helam. When the Baal Shem Tov speaks about Achenasa Cheshach Vavayu, Cheshach Vavayu is Klippet, Shemanaget Elokus. So that's a Helam which is not in Yonei in order to be Megale in this, it's something Megale, they're going against the Eibishter. When you speak at the Etzem of Mitzias, there's a Shemayim, there's the Etzem Geder of Gvul. Not that in Yonah is Lichber Bavai. Etzem in the Kod of Gvul, which is not Margish Lukus. Now you can say the Kavana is that even a Mitzias, which is Mechutz Lukus, to be Nesachat at Blikvul. But the Tnu of Toiv Avay, the Tnu of Klippe, the Tnu of to be Kaifer Lukus, that's the hell in which there is not Margish Lukus. And there it's dirt and Hetachish in the Kod of Tzimtzum Shalagim. The Rebbe is speaking about a lower Eifen of Hell. And at Kedekar to the extent of Achenasa Cheshach Vavayu, which there is Nishchalder beer of Helam Mishul Agili. So what's the ilu of this Helam? The Lamad Lamala and the Ketz over here. You can't say the Maili is that a Lukus can echet kumen and aveg that Azula should be a Keli for it. So then you're only being, that's only mitzad the Amitis in of the Helam that in Yad is the Shul Agili. But what about the Helam of Klip of Toiv Vavayu, which is Glat as a Lichbar Bavai Echad, not an Indian of Gili, or the Matziv of the Etzem Indian of Matzias Hergesh Hayeshes. Not the way it's smeared Amitis Indian. And that's also Indian Amiti Mitzad Lukus. There's the matzav of the Etzem Zach as a Nivra as a Herzach Lukus. And there's that's one of the Ma'ala Ma'ala Adikets. And there's an Ilu Miyuchad in that Tnuah, the Etzem Tnuah of Heter Hergish Lukus. His Almas of Lukus. Not Bishul Agili. The Etzem Tnuah of his Almas of Lukus. That's a Maila over the Indian Agili. There's a certain Ilu that it does get the Rebbe Reidin done. So it comes in the Geshma, in Teres Baal Shem Tov, the Rebbe speaks, the Rebbe starts right in the beginning, that the Friedrich's Lashon is the same way Lamata the Tachas is Lamata Mata Adin Shir. Lamata, I guess, is Lamai Adin Shir. But the Friedrich comes to the Maamar, that nor, it's in Samarishan. So the Rebbe is, if then break the Teres of Hashem, that there's the Helim Adin Shir. So it brings, and the Baal Shem Tov is Machalik in two bubbles. There's the Helim of Aleph Atov, Mitzias Eilimis, and then there's the in of Cheshach Toiv Avay, which is in of Klippus. That's, in other words, there's Helim B'Shvil Agili, and there's Helim She'eni Yari B'Shvil Agili. Stamazay says. Then sagt der Rebbe da, das ist another view. Wieso schon Ashwa Maamar? Das ist interessant, was der Rebbe says here. Schon another word. He says, Afa bishe jedem shebachol ini yesh davar mechayes. Yeah, agam is yada. The Rebbe is saying interessant is that yada in a ways that there's the mitzvah. In other words, that's the word pashut. That the mitzvah mitzadatzmai is not the mocker of his chayes. That everybody understands that everything, the life stems from different mocker, not from different mitzvahs. Okay, today you have people that maybe they think the person there's no nefesh machayeh, the guf itself is a machine. I'm not sure what but I'm saying the mitzvah bari. There's a nefesh machayeh a guf, and after the nefesh leaves the guf dies. It's not the guf itself. The psar the guf itself contains within itself the power of chayeh. So there's everybody knows that there's a whole Indian. There's a davar machayeh. I mean, saying if you're not going to live in denial, so there's a source of life which gives life to everything. And the psar, the geshem adavar mitzadatmi is not chayes. Varaya gets vashimot and the chayes is nistalik. Different rayas of sidus. Aval became that we know there's a davar mechay called that. Aval became yachaliyas keelu shetoyim ve'edim yedim margishim shechay shalom elokus. Va'at shel efshel lavi lahepich l'shamayim hashem rekechem etzim yadi. Ve'edis shem v'li yervani yisini. I just wanted, what does everyone want to bring out of here? Everyone wants to bring out this type of helim. Here the beard is not that the helim is a shulagili or psamayla that inside this Indian lukus can come in the matam. I want to bring out azasar helim can nar zayin okay chaliki. Such a helim v'hester mitzad gidra mitzis what she can't say as a helim v'hester. I was bringing out this Indian. You're not being mila. Certain things you say they're not public things, or you have to be psamaimek to notice it. Certain things, it's the mitzias, the apparent mitzias is veifanach. Yeah, the einer weiß that the nivra is not chai me'atzma. He says, yeah, the einer weiß is a mensch starved, and his chai is just totally never shema chai. And still, he convinces himself that the main thing is the brias haguf, the guf, and he's not metapel in his nefesh. So Azasar tell him that it doesn't make sense, this hell of Esther. The fact that there is such a hell of Esther is because that's what the Eibishter is master. That's the reason that Azasar tell him Esther was kleptish. Not Stam as they saying. So in Bosi Varaifim brings Chares Elokus, the fact that only the Eibishter could create such a hell of Esther. We're going to see what the Ili is, but the Rebbe is speaking such a hell of Esther. There's different types of lamas were stated. The etzmin of tzimtzum derech siluk. We don't ask a question. How could there be a matzah when sees the pshutis v'lukus b'yitzchachis? There's a tzimtzum. So herzach yishtein sof. Herzach yishtein sof. So there's the hergish mitzvahs. Here they're saying everybody here. We're all speaking about azal chasart halamas v'yisteirim, that it doesn't make sense that the nivra doesn't have hergish lukus, or it denies the fact that there's nivra. Only the Eibusher can make such a halamas. That's the and in them b'shtei the ili that the koyach halaki which is expressed in the fact that he's able to hide himself is a deeper koyach than the koyach of Gili, that he's able to reveal it, that he's able to reveal himself. But first, the Rebbe stellt weg that we're dealing with the Zashat Halam V'Hester, which nor the Rebbe should come machen as Halam V'Hester. You see, one way you say is the teacher leaves the room so you don't see him, or you need, in order for them to be in such denial, he has to activate it. You need him to create such a Halam V'Hester. Him leaving is not going to create at kedekach hazam shagas that people are going to think keichem etzim yad asli yischai lazeh. While the Metzias is that without Siyata D'Shmaya, let's say nothing. So an Ava became a person denies facts that he sees with his own eyes. That's only the Eibusher could create such a Halam V'Hester. So that's the Keich Halki, which is near in the Hester Gufa. What's that what I'm saying? I'm just saying why the Rebbe is mired so much. What's happening as if the Halam V'Hester? Yet the Rebbe is the Nivra is a Margish. The Friedrich is the Maamar is mired. He's explaining what the Friedrich wants to be guided. That's a Ilui Neisif. What's Nisgale, what brings Chares in the Tuna of Lamai Lamai Ladin Ketz, which you don't have in Lamata Mata Adin which you don't have in the darkest religion of Lamai Lamai Ladin Ketz.
What's the Ilui that comes out of it?
We'll see later. I'm just saying first he's explaining, I'm just saying the word. One thing you say is that everybody knows. The fact that we don't feel the lukus because David doesn't sound to himself. That's not a chiddush. You say the teacher left the room, no one knows that he's there. We're saying something else. We're saying this type of denial, the Eibusher is the one actively creating it. He could make such a Halam V'Hester. Not only he could hide himself. Only he could create such a phenomena that you're able to live in such a denial. That's what he's being mazbul there. And then we're going to see that the Keich HaEster is a deeper Keich than the Keich HaGil. So it's like this. They were speaking with the Eitzim Halam V'Hester, but it's more to bring out how this type of Halam V'Hester is Atakel Mustater. Not the Rebbe Shekamach as Halam V'Hester. That's a big difference. If you say that the fact that we don't feel it because he hides himself, or he creates this type of Halam V'Hester, so not the Rebbe. And then Nish that either with Chares of them is not that he's able to mahapech this Halam together. The Eitzim fact that the Rebbe should be in such a Eifen of Halam V'Hester. That itself expresses his guidance. As a ken machen as a hester. That we'll see. Das wie sie drin. Aber became Yachlis Keilu Shatoyim Benim Yedem. Give Chai Shalom look it's a Pelagadol. Even though you know yourself that the Chayis doesn't come from you. There's a Nefesh Machayis. And every morning the person wakes up refreshed in the morning. And now he thinks that the case when he knows himself that his chayes is not dependent on him. There's some makar eli. So samad netos. Not only he's not margish, but there's a fact that he's person gets such a toast. It can be in a village also. That everything's dependent on him. But again, to Iker Mitzuyusir, this Chai, he knows that his nefesh that there's a dover Machai, but Aval Ken there's a Chaim that everything's dependent. Even I created the fact that I have a nefesh Machai. He says, "Hine l'chura adi is one of the Yisrachim level the hechers or Shemaim Nasu." But you can say, yeah, but Chassidus sometimes the Helim that the etzem mitzias hayesh betivay. So I'll tell you that everything's Maamar Bosi Legani Yiraleh. That the hergish hanivra betiva is mitzvah esmos. Yeah, Nivra Mitzvah is not margish. Eid HaShemesh is it's part of its makeup is that it's an extension of the Shemesh. And Nivra Gashmi is the created, so you're a result of something. But it's not, it's Regesh Tivi is not that it's a result of something else. It's Ashpa from somewhere. He's here. In the Regesh Tivi of the Yesh, his mitzvah says that he exists, not that he comes from somewhere. So that's Helm of Esther. If the Amos of Meir given, so then it would be would be Nirgash in the Nivra that he's a Titzah. He was Nishaber. That's not Nirgash in the Nivra. But the Rebbe Retish there Helm. So that the Dvaravai is the Helm of Esther. Here the Rebbe is saying without being Seichel that it's a Helm of Esther which doesn't make sense. The fact that he's Mesalik, it's not Nirgash in the basic. The Yesh is not Margish is Margut. The Yesh is not Margish. The Yesh is Mile himself. The Yesh is not Margish is Margut. But a person not Seichel. And if you're going to make an honest calculation of what's going on, you say someone walks into a room and you see that there's 10 people there and he's going to be convinced that there's 100 people there. You know, you make such a mistake. The reality is otherwise. So here, you look at the world, and it says, what's the hechech? And not, they're saying not a hechech from you look at the mitzvahs, you see that this thing is not self-sustaining. But do like the Rebbe says when they get to the word of Chayis. It's yet in their base that a dover cannot exist without a dover mechayes. And there's no mitzvahs that its chayes and kiyum exists within the geshem of the mitzvahs itself. So Al Teres that brings here that if you look at the mitzvahs honestly, so the mitzvahs alone advice that there needs that it's totally in a bed. What do you see that? It says Kumuvur Kishvar Chagatam Arash Vem Shechmayim Rab. It's not the Hem Shechmayim Rab the Chazer Kamapam. It's the Rebbe brings here on the Kudah from the Chamecha Chavtes that he mentions in Mayim Rab. Dort sagt Shekol Mitzias Lamato who Murka without the Seides. Shebezeu in Chibrei Seides. I mean, it's not Be'im Yepirei Seides the Shar Mitzias. That's the statement. What is Mayim? It's a chibur of 4 elements. So each element so it's a chibur of 4 elements. And if without the chibur of the Zer Neis, each element is in b'fnei. In order for these 4 to integrate, you have to have a keich hamarkiv. It's not nevei mitzad. B'im yipir they say the shar mitzias. If it came mitziyusam at the keich hamarkiv, mekasher meyachad they say this. Shekeich hamarkiv is a win shalom madal they say this. In other words, so if you make a cheshbon bari, if you look at the mitzias, you don't have to be misbein in inyanim and bezdakim. You look at the elam kameshu ata. The world is not a self. How do you say self-sufficient thing. It's hard to finish. But after the game, we don't view the world. We don't view ourselves that way. We don't view the world that way. So after the last kind of leaders just line there say Rema Shadvar Chavayel Elam Yisrael Shemayim. The Eiso Mekayim Mitzias Shemayim Veretz Chos Harbam Shazabayim Lizban Skumur Baruch. Yeah. Afa Pikein Ubehelem Acher Helem Achef Shalias. In other words, even though Mitzad Echa Mitzad Erzazei Begolui and Afa Pikein is Behelem Acher Helem. After Achef Shalias Mizagam in Hafachi Kanal. So, and that's a Helem. Sounds like they're saying that's a Helem Acher Helem, not a regular Helem. So as I start Helem that Hagam that they were saying when they get to the Li Erev Ne'esasin, which is the Helem Acher Helem, that he Bechal denies that they existed as Azar. But the Mashmos over here is it's not a Helem that comes as a result that he's not Begoli. That's a Helem that's creating a massive Helem V'Hester, even though you should have from the mitzias the way it's nirde, but gedav sein anders. That's the mashmos. You have in the Sfeed. Oh, we have it here. The Friedrich was Lashon. It's just interesting. The Friedrich was Lashon here. Look at the Lashon here. He says. Wir haben sieben ganze Tage gam die Kinder sind schon kurz zum das ihnen zum ist gar nicht. Wir kommen können so verdienen, gell? Wir kommen können primische Reise mal heißen, ich bin primische in welche Reise werden, von welche Reise. Können gehen Reise gehen. Es geht Kosam Helvester wird schon ist mir Achillelias. Kosam Helvester ist Achillelias mehr Gas position dem eigentlich der wohlkus. The Kosam kein self last Salome system cable. So what's the big saying here? What's the is big? The Kosam machen as Sache Salome system is not going to that's a keich hablik vot makes such a hester. Even something that's l'chura fully apparent in front of your eyes, that you shouldn't sense the truth of that mitzias that's open in front of your eyes. That's the keich machen as a helem best. Just l'chura the word. Now, I just wanted the lashon over here. He says to sound the lashon. The Friedrich Rebbe Zayim, l'chura the Rebbe is coming to. The Friedrich Rebbe says, "B'ribi alamis v'steirim." Where does he say? He calls him Helen Esther Rebbe. He says, "Achi yachaliyes meichi gas kazesh any idea margish." Means Ribi alamis, the fact that his meich could be gas. So the fact that he could have such a grave cup that shouldn't. That's an event inside the Helen Esther Rebbe. It's not that you say it's an outcome. Once the teacher left the room, so you don't see him there. They're saying the fact that you could have a zas sort meich gas, which is mistaken the mitzias in such a eifin, that's the keach the Helen Esther. So not a regular type of Helen Esther. That's the chura that gosh. Oh, so now, so good. So here we're saying that let's say it's a keach niflu ma'ay to be able to hide himself, and to be able to hide himself even when in a way that he's so in front of you, say you're so in front of it and still you can't see him. He hides himself to the extent that even when you're mamish, when he's l'chura right next to you, still you don't notice him. That's a dafke the keach itself machen as a Helen Esther. So derech ambur lil be'er self lamata in tachlis. Shu nimtzig am lamata mata even shal erin sof. Derech ambur lil that even the lowest madrigas, the ein sof is nimtzig lamata mata. But what's the word before? The word before is that even though the mitzias and nivra is very low, ein sof gefinzach umedum. Not as ein sof gefinzach within the fact that he's not seen. We're saying lamreis the fact that the nivra is very low, still ein sof extends himself everywhere. Is misgal everywhere. Gefinzach umedum. Here they're saying a different word. Although it's going to be in the Ketz, this tnua that he's behelim, their helim gufa is neveh for them. There's a gam in the Ketz, and the beile acher ile in Ketz. Achu helim kol kach she'emer kech veitzim yodi. Here the chura the ile acher ile is okay. That was going to touch up later, but here the chura means that the he say zich meilam at kedei kach at she'emer kech veitzim yodi liyer ben yisusani. V'gam sham ve'even shel erin sof. V'rak she've'even shel helim acher helim. Means thus for the air can stay in azar cert eifin, that itself is neveh mitzad. That's also keich itself. It's not the pshat as sich mistalik am memele am macht greisen. Schafft him as an azar cert Helen v'hester. So the Helen v'hester is also that that's neveh mitzadim. That's one way he expresses himself that he's able to hide himself in such a. That's also a way of expression. You say he expresses himself with the fact that he's begoli b'chom hakim, and he expresses himself in the way he hides himself. In the eifin of Helen Vester of Alakur, that's also an expression of what? The ain't self, how much he's able to hide himself.
And why is the Daka Kach ain't said to be mad so much?
That's what Rebbe said. That even though the mitzias is so apparent in front of you, and still you don't notice him, and not, the Rebbe saying it, that's what I'm saying, the figure of his lashon is, we're not blaming a person. The Eibush created as that certain mitzias, a me'ach adam here in Elam Hazah, which could come to make such mistakes. He created that. That's the Rebbe's Magic Shavir. The Eibush created a situation where a Me'ach Adam, even though on one hand he created the world in a way that if you look at the world normally and honestly, that there's a Keich Alakim Chayes Anibra. And the pile, the Eibush created the Me'ach in a way that you could live in the night. That's only he could make such a Hanavester. So so what's the Pshat of Ma'ala Ma'ala Adin That in the Hester is Neveh Mitzad Insav. Not that he exists even in a makom which is far from him. In the truas the hester guf is there's Erin Saf. Means the fact as there can the head hergish alakus is the insaf expressing himself in the eifin that he's not nirgash.
Can we say that's the kula of Hadar?
There you go. Let's not go back over there. I don't know, what do you gain by saying that, please?
The Rebbe brings it out. The Rebbe example the kula.
Yeah, but I think it's something else.
The Rebbe is bringing out.
That means Gabi Tzimtzum edition. I don't think that's the end of the siv. But that's the Gabi Tzimtzum edition. I don't think he's speaking of here. This is not a word in Erbach. This is the Rebbe is being speaking. It sounds like from the Hemshech HaMaamar that this word is already mitzad Yechidish Leilahar the way it's in the Sheirish. Not the way the air is based almost. This is where the Keich has to go. Till now, the Rebbe is speaking about the air being in a tnu of his almas, and that is kavanasi b'shvil agili. Here the Rebbe is saying, the Rebbe says air in stuff, but sounds like it's more mitzad because the air is the gili etzem. It's not the regular, not the tnu of gili in a way of his almas. It's he expressing himself in the fact that he's able to hide himself. Not the Rebbe speaking of Tanat since Kavanah said Tzimtzum is that the Erzal Stein Echet in Gvul. The Truas Agilish, the Talmud should be a Kedi to the Gvul. Here the Nekud is not the Talmud should be a Kedi to the Gvul. The fact, the Erin Sof dikt sich in them as er kann sich behalten. There is a vantage stamp. This is the stamp from the Yechidah Shtei Lahar. We'll see later. It's not what that has to do with the. We'll see in the Hemshech HaDvarim here. The one's with me, yeah? So there it says, "V'zeh b'mashem mamshich b'Maamar ochin ata kel mistater." Oh, so das sagt ochin ata kel mistater. Was sagt k'may shekeh kelin yani is chesed. Means the same way that Tanua in Agilu. The Eibusher is seen and is gala b'chol makom makom. And in the Agilu we see that it's gili b'li gvul. So we said to Lukus, where the Eibusher ain't self-expressed. See, we see the Eibusher ain't self in the fact that he's begili b'chol makom. The Tnuas Hagilui, in the Tnuas Hagilui, zetzach on the Gadus of Elokus. K'may shekel. There was a Daik Loshen Ata Kel Mistata, but the same way Kel, which in Yoni is Gilui. Be'efed ol Mata Mata Hu Mebchina Da'ata means we see the Ein of Elokus in the fact that he's begoli b'chol makim. Al derech ze Masha Elokus Mistata. Das ist der Herzach nicht Elokus. Was Elokus is Mistata. So what's the Rebbe saying? Al derech Masha Elokus Mistata Kavanot V'Yishvil Hagilui. Und in dem allein, was steht in der Efen of Hester, in dem allein setzt sich Ata. Punkt, das sehen wir in Agilui. The fact that he's begoli b'chol makom. You say, if someone sees a nest, you say, oh, you see the Yad Hashem, you see the Eibishter. So there's then the fact that Teva is Mailam and Master in Holocaust, in dem allein zet ben echet Ata. That also is the Ata expressing himself. Not expressing himself the fact that he's able to be Mizgala. Expressing the fact that he's able to be Master, he's able to create such a Lamas Vestadim. So the Lamas Vestadim are also an expression of it. You say there's two methods the Eibusher reveals himself. Not reveals himself to Tnuas Hagili. Through Tnuas Hagili you see his Ein Sof, or you see his Achdus, and you see that there's only him, and he's the one directing everything, in the fact that he makes such a hell of a Hester. The Mistater, only the Eibusher can machen Zal Chesed. And you say, Azaz Sir Tos, that a Nivers Zal Zechayinit, and say, Parei, that Lepel, as I mentioned that he had to hide the fact that he's going to the battle. Lepel convinced himself he ate the Assassin. It wasn't Stam. The fact that a person can make such a mistake that cannot come, it's at Gidra Mitzvahs. Only the Eibusher could make such a mistake.
The Achinat is not talking about the Halam which is spoke about.
No, this is a new Indian, no.
Actually, you see in the puzzle because the
This is what the Rebbe is teaching here. For the Rebbe gives a new Indian, what's the Indian of Helam? I'm saying it's a whole new Indian. Before the Rebbe teaches a different word.
in the puzzle, right? You see this because the
At the Kel Mistater. What's the dik that the Mistater is also Kel? So the same way the Atta Zetzach in Kel, Al der Zed der Zelber der Atta Zetzach in Hester. Whereas the same way, what are we saying in Gili? He expressed, what's the Chiddush over here? As he sagt, when Gili expresses it. You say there's a person, he expresses his qualities through Gili. Helam is, he's not expressing himself. What happens when he doesn't express himself? So there's a jungle. Not that he expresses himself in the fact that he's hidden. You understand what I'm saying? There's a big difference to say he hides himself. As a result of the fact that he hides himself, so his class is having a good time. Or the fact that they don't see him, he makes himself invisible. So the Helam of Esther is Zainker. So the same way he expresses himself, he expresses his qualities, let's say, through being Nizgala, he expresses his kaiches through hiding. Azah Hester nar erkamachan Azah Hester. So his qualities, so to speak, are expressed. His ato is expressed through Helam.
We're not really talking about the R anymore.
It's a different tnu. We'll see later. I'm saying this, but Pashtus in is his galus, tnu of Gilu, not the tnu of Helam. But the Indian of Helam Gufa. Yeah, we'll see the. It's a k'meisha kel shinyani chesed kel kolayim. Is that in that Gilu? Is that a man? She's megala that nechachmasay midaysav. So in his Gilu is zetzach zayin gadlus. What's pshat behalten sich? So he's in himself. He's in himself. He was saying not that he's in himself. He expresses himself in the Helamas Vestadium. The Azal Helamas Vestadium is only he could create such Helamas Vestadium. It's a different type of Helam Vestadium. He could be in a way that no one notices him, and the fact that no one notices him, that goof is an expression of his character. Means that Kadevish, which is Ein Sof. Because he's Ein Sof, he's in Skala Lamata Mata, al der is a mashal kos mistater, who gam kim ba mebchinas Ata. the dafke me Ein Sof yechol yis ein lo ma'ala ma'ala adiketz, ein lo helam acher. Dafke von a Eibisher, which is Ein Sof, it could be helam acher. So here the Rebbe says his word. This l'chud is not the tunu of Eir. So before we have the Memshach Samavav, what does it say Adam ki akriv take? Adam ki akriv, it's not speaking helam mishvil agili. We're saying that there's the Atzmos is not mugder in the gather of Gili. Atzmos could also be behelim. And because Atzmos could also be behelim, so in Eir also there's not only in Agili and Eir, there's also in of helim in Eir. It's a different union. If the Eir would sherish of Eir would be that only inside the lower dark and not Atzmos mamish, then the Eir would only contain the Tnuas Agili. That's the way Eir is in the Mishalim. The Eir HaShemesh only expresses the Tnuas Agili which the Shemesh has. Not other aspects in the Shemesh. She'ink in Eir L'mayla, it's not to get all the beauty now, but the Nekud is that Eir L'mayla doesn't only reflect the Keach Hagili which exists in the Etzem, he also reflects the Keach HaHelim which exists in the Etzem. Wie wird sich Ares gebracht an Eir, as that the mitzad the Eir, there could be a Zelcha Sart Lemes Vester. Now there's much closer. Kubur Baruch Hu Shazam Avayim Beis. V'kam Kemes Chakma Adam Shavush Maseidin. To K'may Shekeach HaBlig V'Lum HaBlig V'Lam Miti means the Inyan HaEir, where the fact that the Eibusher is everywhere, Mispashet, the Nimtza, is mitzad Atzmos, mitzad the fact that the Eibusher is Ein Sof. K'may Ken Keach HaMagdol Ulamatem is a Keach HaGvol Nilka Gamkin Dafkin HaBlig V'Lam Miti. What I was saying before, we see that it's a gvul that dafka bli gvul kamachan as a gvul. A gvul bag bala what you get machan as a gvul. But the Rebbe is saying weiter, hadayil is who are you being mailam on the air? There he says that over there. I efshel hagbul keich abli gvul raka the inin shel mailam. Means the dart and there that the air in sof comes in the of agbal, comes in the of salmos. It's interesting because Tona there was speaking about the air gvul that the nekuda of air gvul guf has never yitzia from bli gvul. But the Rebbe inin of his almos which in is not b'shul agil. Inin of gvul, inin of his almos like. As we can the air magbul, we can the kalim, how can the keich gvul, which in Yoni is gvul, be mailim there. The way is, if you say something regular Moshe Rabbi Talmud, so then the lechatchila, the whole nekuda of the tzimtzum is b'shvil aris bringing the ein sof. Here we're saying there's a yechel shel, there's in a gvul, not in order the bleak gvul of the Eli, to give space for hergish hayeshes. Meaning nekuda semitzius. The tnu of hell of a hester guf, being magbul the air. How could if the air is bleak gvul, how could the air be in a tnu? How could a davar which is lower than the air, a Indian keich gvul, how could that be ma'ilo master on the air which is bleak gvul? So them zokter because. So there he says that it's from the same shelish. That's what he says. The Rebbe says something else. Like in Shalom it doesn't say that over there. I don't think. What does it say over there? There the word in Samavav is dafke mitzach dafke. The keich gvul has to be from the same shelish of the air. No, it's a shelish. Yeah, I don't know if the dikov is davar Shalom davar Shalom from the air which is being misamt from the shelish. Yeah, he's not nice. Like that's the right that the keich gvul is also beside the same mocker of the air is neveya. Why is the air in sof? Because it's simcha from the etzem, and that etzem is also keich gvul. So it's kavim shkul. That's what the Rebbe is saying.
The etzem we said already in the beginning of the Maamar. No, I mean it's because the other three starts off with sif.
Yeah, but the Friedrich starts at the sin.
Before getting into prata, kashem.
That's what it means with the kashem. Not the kashem is the shem is the same way he's nimshach lamata mata. Al derech zeh is nimshach lamayla mayla.
What's the
in the
hell?
hell?
What's the flaw?
There's flaws. It could be that the air is bisalmos, not necessarily the chayla shalei lahar. The Rebbe speaks kamadargis. There could be kama inyanim without flaw. Here, what the Rebbe is saying here that the etzem inyan of keich gvul is an expression of bleedvul. Punkt as if the air is ein sof. You need only an etzem which is ein sof. Could be mispashat ein sof. Only an etzem which is ein sof could be in a tnu of gvul at ein sof. He didn't say that before in the Maamar that in the tnu of gvul is also drik zechais the ein sof of the etzem. That's what I was saying here. Means the ein sof of atzmos is not only expressed in the kav agili, it's also expressed in the kav helim. That it could be hidden ad ein sof. Where do you see that the helim? You say what ad ein sof? Because he's there and Avavakin you don't sense it. But here the Rebbe is Meisef Nachavart. Shemizeh Adarab Murchan Chleimer Eid Yeser Shebchinas Ata Gufa Meret Legabi the Etzem. So the Indian Habligvul, the Indian Hagili is lower. The Indian Hagvul Drik Tois Atifri in the Indian Habligvul. Shebchinas Ata Gufa Nekei Hagvul in the Mistater Ulamali Yeser Mekil Gili. Shamistater Ulamayla Ba'ata Mekil. So that he speaks over there that the keich gvul, the chele shalei lahir, is more of an Indian Atzmi than Indian Agili. Yeah, there's common beauty in that. Saying the Pashta beer in a way is the Dugmas what the Rebbe is saying a little bit over here. The Indian Ha'er in a way is Chassidus steht as a word that the more the more godless an Indian is, the more mitzad tivui, mitzad dar verstehen begilui. Something that you say something which is ain't sof. So what's the natural result of being ain't sof? He'll be mispashit b'chol makom. To be behelding and say l'chore is ain't sof, if something's small, so he's only where he is. Something that's ain't sof, and Ava B'Kein is not nirgash, so that means that he's not muchrich in any gdol. What brings out that he's not muchrich to make sense? There's only him. He's not muchrich in what's considered greatness, classic Muslim greatness. That's nisbat in the Kavah Helim more than the Kavah Gil. Kavah Gil make it the Eivisher is ain't sof. As there's ain't sof, gefit is the Chuv Ibn They say Sarponim and he's Vizgala b'chol makim, he's Meir b'chol makim. The fact that he's not muchrich he could be without being expressed.
Well, why saying that he's Ein Sof more the natural state than saying that he's L'mayla from being Ein Sof?
Because it says on Chassidus, not L'mayla, it says on Chassidus that the teva of an Indian which is the ili gadol ma'ed is to be bezgalas.
Even when you're talking about Atzmos?
Kaviyachal, the teva blig vol is to be begilui. If you say the musik of teva there, but it mitzad giluyim, let's say, mitzad tziyur, an Indian of Ein Sof should be in a tunu of espashtus. The fact that he's not in a tunu of espashtus is because he's an etzem, that he's not muchrich to be in any tziyur. So the tunu gilui, you say he's beyond any tziyur. Gilui is mitzad the tziyur. That's in Azay Diktzchais Ein Sof as a state begoli b'chol makim. That so it makes sense in Agili. Mashiach in Helim, that's because the Eivisher is not muchrich in anything. He'll be here and he's not visible. Saying he's here, you don't recognize him. No one's going to say. The Rebbe is speaking about 11th verse. What's the point of the Salam Vest? No one notices him. What's the point of the Salam Vest? Who said he has to be in a way that you see a point? Who said he has to be in a way that we're able to sense greatness? He's beyond that. We have to sense it. There's him, and he's not muchrich in any. It doesn't have to make sense in any gdol. So the keach ha'etzem, which doesn't have to conform to any milas v'yiluyim, that's expressed in the keach ha'elim more than the keach ha'gili. Gili blik vol, but the etzem true of gili means seherzach dagadus. So it's nicker his milas. So it's nittas in a certain mitzias. Helim herzach garnished. That means the Eivisher take a state. He doesn't state however he wants to be. That's the way he is. He's not programmed according to any gather v'yilu. So the Friedrich Reins kam Mishalim that the Indian of Tzimtzum, sich einhalten, is a deeper keach than Indian of Gili. So it's not an Indian nifla. I'm saying a kleine zach, but imet meretach Indian amiti, someone that which me'etzem yehusay say chachmas adam ter panim, let's say. So it's Indian amiti that mitzad and is chadish like the septa chadet over there, and there was such a gilui has seichel in his guf. Mitzat teva advarim, it has to be misparitz. It has to be. It can't be self-contained. And the fact that it could be self-contained, that's a deeper keach than the keach of likvul. Sich einhalten ist schwerer, wie zu sich mispashis. Your son's malamed. It's a joke. After this, what was the litzamis? When he read the Shabbat, the Leyachas Kalvasheni. It's a famous vertical. That Shabbos, non-Shabbos after Shabbos, but the Lechus Kav L'Sheni, that the Eivisher said to give a schar to the Klovim, like Kol Tashlichanes, the schar that they were, but the L'chora the Tzfardim jumped into the fire. So that much more serious nefesh. Why don't we find there's a schar for the Tzfardim? So mostly the Tzfardim, but the Chayzim understand there's a vertical that to be quiet is harder. For the Kelev not to bark. Es ist einhalten ist schwer, es ist allein tanzen in der Feier. Tun ist never schwer, tanzt allein dort, tanzt dort, und es ist nur bis Spaß. But es sich einhalten ist eine schwere Sache. I don't know if this is maybe the Gemara is Mishalom is like Meishu Lamata when Atzimtzum. Elam is Lamata v'kelam d'biyah. Gam Lamaylam is v'kelam d'Atzilus, ad different Atzimtzum, ad ba'atzmus. Oh, so here's ad ba'atzmus shamu inin ha'yechelus. Ha'yechelus lahar v'yechelus shlei lahar. I think this word is also negay. We're going to get back to this line. So always the keach ha'gvul, keach ha'helim, hatten sich am Meile, then the keach ha'gili, tifre keach, bi is a meret in Atzmos, where in Atzmos there's a two, mit was besteht der Ein Sof, der Heder Agdor of Atzmos, that he's Ein Sof, he's Begili B'chol Mokim, he's Yochel Lahoyer, he's Adover Mugbol, kann nicht mehr sein. Dafke mit the fact that the Atzmos is Ein Sof, kann mehr sein. Dafke am Moir, Dafke an Ein Sof, could be mehr b'derech HaMeir. So Yichidish Lo. That is the fakir. Because he's an Etzem, and he's not Mugder, dafür nicht stehen begov. Yochel Shlei Lahoyer. Dort mit Bishab. So what's the Rebbe saying here? That the inner of Erin Sof L'Ma'ala, I think that there's a Tunu of his Almus Ha'er. That's Nevea, that's a result of the Yichidish Lahoyer in Atzmos. The Yichidish Lahoyer in Atzmos is expressed in the Keich HaGili there. And the Yichidish Lahoyer of Atzmos is expressed in the air, the Tnuas HaHel. So in auch in Artikel Mestater. It's the Zelber Ata. Because there, in other words, Sof Kol Sof, their gateman that the Mocker, Hagvol, Vahelim, is an Atzmos in Sof Mamish. In the Yichidish Lahoyer. I think it's not in Zelber, there's no like the but I don't know. I should Bob Mestater Repel Adam, the Elam is Clifton. So I think that it sounds like that the fact that he's Bob and Mistater ad the Ilmas Clifton, hot to Tom the Yichidish Lahoyer Mitzad Atzmos. That's what it sounds like over here. The Indian of Tzimtzum Shalai Gilead, the Inyar and Yiluyin that he spoke till now, that's all the Indian of Helim, the way it is, a Mailin Giluyin, the Indian of Helim. That through the Helim, Verta Reis gebracht the Blickvol of the earth, that he could also be inside the Makal, inside the Talmud. But this Nikud of the Indian of Helim, not L'Shem Shleimus of the Indian of Gilead. The Etzem Zach, nicht Muchach in Gilead, can't stay in the Helim. That's expressed in the Helim of Clifton. That's Achin Atakel Mustad. Thing is, there is the fact that Helim is higher than Gilui is because Gilui is verbunden with a certain union of Ilui and Maile, a certain gather of Gilui, a certain Velakus, Verta Reis gebracht, and a certain Hafla and Mitzis. Helim is, he's not Muchrach. You see, it doesn't make sense, why does he ahead of us? It doesn't have to make sense. Darf verstehen wie Gilui. Wo setzt sich this mile of Helim the way it is Mitzad Etzem? That the Helim is Mitzad Atzmis of Velakus, which is not Muchrach and gather of Gilui. That you see in the fact that he's Bo Mistater Ba'am in the Clifford, in the Torah of the Clifford. Mitzad the of Helim Machinani B'Shulai Gilui, that the Talmud should be Kemaisu that I spoke before. So there's a certain Ili Nifla in the Helim. What's the Ili Nifla? That even a Zulas is a Kelitin. His bleak Vul could also be in a Zulas. So that's a certain, it's that the air is not Mugdar, but it's a certain Ili. It's a Herzach HaGevisser HaFloh from the Lakus. That he's not Muchach, that his bleak Vul should be Dafkin, a Tnu of air, also the Talmud, also the Mitzias, could be a Kelitin bleak Vul. But the mitzvah sin of Artikel Mestater is that he's not muchach in any inyan. As a Viervul can understand, doesn't make sense. He's beyond to say that there has to be who said there has to be a point? Viervul. Fishalibert saying this nikud of that's the Yichidish Lahoyer, the way it is inside the Etzem, which is not muchach in any gather of Yili, and that's expressed dafka in the clip in the Helim, which is in the Helim Lamata B'Yesem.
This is the one that we had in Moshe before you brought Magid.
I don't think. What do you see?
Before you brought Magid, you said that was a little beer. That's in part of Shtei B'Helim.
No, but that I'm saying, there's Kama B'Yurim the Ma'ala Shtei B'Helim. There's a Ma'ala because that brings out that the fact that the air could be Nimtza, even of Helim, that the air is not higher. There's a Nibra which is not Margashim. Not that the air could be in a state of hiding. I'm not saying that. There is the fact that people could live in such denial. That expresses his kayach. He could make himself not known. Say, what's the point that people should not be aware of the Eibishter? What's the point? Say, what's the illusion is that? As those listen as Dan Eibishter, which is not muchrich, that he should make sense to you. Someone says apart. You say the Eibishter wrote many times. I'm not saying as ever. Say that people are tinus and the Holocaust and these things. Say you thought you forget that should be mechazik them, not mechazik them, but the idea that the Eibishter is beyond what you understand. This is Kaviyad was Eibishter to schaffen Welten blickvoll Eilumis, and he gave Yidden. You understand very well. This I don't understand. Why did he do this? The Eibishter does not have to be understood. So wo wird is gebracht? That he's not muchrich in Gdorim. He's beyond description. Where's that brought out? And that he does something that we can't reprehend around it. What's the point of this? When there's a point, even if it's an Indian nifla b'yesir. So that's in of Gili. Herzach, that flow of a lukus. That's Herzach is the nikudas etzem. Nikudas etzem is there's no Teire does not Agbalis, there's only him. Was will. Das wird er gebracht in the Helle Mashalamata B'Yesu. And that's the Achin Atakal Mestater.
Let's go lower for the, Tzimtzum and Gilei. I Hashem, same for this.
Yeah,
Before you have Maamar is higher than all the Teredim, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, but I'm saying there's many.
It could also be saying it's just higher.
I'm just saying there's many Pratim you want to bring out in the Kudah that Moir is higher than Gilui.
No, I'm saying the word, you heard.
Say it.
The Rebbe was that Indian. The whole.
Say they're saying that everything is.
Here. Say this is the question explaining is
Yeah, but I'm saying is the Rebbe is not speaking about. Why is that Helen Gilui? The Eibusha there's people living in total denial. A man hat sich eingeredet, kriege we etzim yadi alles schliess. Kennst du Mazel? What's the point? The fact that there's a Talmud, and the Talmud is not like the Rab, much lower than the Rab. We understand. Sof kol sof, wer is gebracht, and even niflamay, that a Lakus could also be by a Tachten years. The Eibusha created someone that's convinced that he kriege we etzim yadi alles azam shagas. What's the Indian then? What's the Indian then? Azam shagas and stamazeh han narshatos. It's reingeredet that you different yeshes and akshama that's glad mishagas. So that brings out that Achan Atakal is not the Eibusha Kamachan Azeh Halabest. It doesn't make sense. He's not muchlich. He's not muchlich that he has to make sense. You don't have to find an ilui. You don't have to find a mailer. He's beyond mailers. That's expressed in the Truas Helen. A certain Inyan Atzmi that he's not muchlich in ilui va'aflo. He's not muchlich to be verstandig. We don't see godless over here. It's Don Eibishter. It's a different Inyan. It's a different word. And this is the Inyan Helen, the way it is in Sadi Chedesh Leilahir. And since Eir is Nimshach, from Etzem, so the air comes in such a Eifin of Helen Hester.
The Indian of Helm we spoke about before.
I'm saying, Mitzad Gedra Eir, what is given as a Helen Hester? Because Mitzad Gedra Eir is, Eir Mitzad Atzim is Tzir, is via Lakus Kumtan and Gilui. So the Helen has to be a Helen that contributes to some Gilui. But a Helen doesn't contribute to anything.
The Indian of Helm we spoke about before also wasn't natural Mitzad Gedra either, right?
Say that, but
And so there's the Indian Mitzad that's in there as well.
Yeah, but etzem is a broad word. I'm saying beyond the regular gather of blikvo, so it's not mugdar, but it's the Indian of ilui. The pile we see a certain virtue in this ilui. We could explain in was b'shteit aflo. Then there's he does what he wants. Doesn't have to fit. Doesn't have to conform. So Zagwas Kenzen. I'm not.
Why is it different?
What do you mean? Why is it different part? There's one way of saying someone has a kat everything seems like it makes sense. So what's the result of that? You realize that the Eibusha is beyond understanding. That's a certain Indian that the Atakil Mestater bringt er. Du meinst, du verstehst und verstehst nicht. Nicht muchrig in any gdorim of ilui. Any gdorim of ilui. You don't see what's the point. He's not muchrig that things have to have a point. There's what he wants. And that also tells us when they get to the air that it's all, there's the kavanah se'etzim. It's not because of a certain ilui and something that has that involves a clip. Kach nes'avet. Pnimis, about everything. It's all one emes. But this emes is nisgalef through the union of Helen Vester. The kavanah should be gilu. The kavanah is not through Helen Vester. Okay, this is the problem. These are we saw them. Mashiach Kechem is mother Li Erev Nissan. What Indian Zeva is saw this clip is. So Acha Bab mistater bepoil. Was says that Ata kommt and dikt sich is in the mistater bepoil. The kavanah sabriya is, but not that it should stay in the state of Li Erev and Yesisidi. Is on the Galavan that the fact that there's such a phenomena is the Ata kel mistater. There's good on the Galavan. V'zeh mashin is barely ill shebeis ein yonim. Yeah, this point the Rebbe spoke about Tish Tasha Bafei. You don't have the Sicher Chilik test. You see a lesson over there. The Rebbe said that he's in the Hester Gufa. There's a text about the Rebbe said it is that if someone thinks that look at the Lashon Asich. There's no Chilik test, right? Okay, it's just again. So much is bro. I have to see the Sich inside. You'll see the Lashon there. The Yom is vacant with the Sich of Tish. The Rebbe spoke Shabbos Shuvah. The day the Rebbe Zechana passed away. Gewähnt stark, but Anechi Haster Astra Pana Beim Hu Teres the Teres about Teres the Teres Teres. Zeu Sheker Mamish. The fact that a Yid thinks that he's it's not Margish Alakus, the Sheker. So what means the Sheker? He's not married from his point of view. He's not Margish Alakus. That's a sheker, because the heder ahergish does gufas inside the rat. The hester guf is not because he walked away, therefore you don't feel it. He's the master. He's the one that creates the hell and the hester. He's behind it. Yeah, there's a look in the Lashon Sifra there. So much as brothers speaking in such a simple amount because mata din tachas, so she mata din tachas. Oh, it says elos. Hine do mata din tachlis, nimshach mekech hamamshach vekech hameir. In the mata din ketzu belam achelim, va'kech shaleilah, lahalim letzamtzim. I think the Teres HaMarav HaMagid is a general word. You could learn it as a general. You could learn it as al derech like the Moshe Brava Talmud that in a helim is b'shvil agili, tzukim etzanach ha'hecheri. Or the Magid saying a general thing. The Eibush made a lamas v'steirim. Saf kosov there should be the yichud ha'adam with the Eibush there. Because the kavana is not there should be the helim v'hester. The kavana is as a chenin atzmos. The kavana is that this inin gufa, the fact that the lamas v'steirim is the atas nistater does gufas on this galavan. It's as a chenin in the helim v'hester of keich v'etzim yadi that is the Eibush behind it. That goof has to be this guy. You understand what I'm saying? The kavanah is not that it should stay Helen Vehester. The kavanah is on this Galaver in the Helen Vehester that in Yoni is that Erin Suf is not muchach to be in a way that's verstanden. You say it's a Holocaust. The kavanah is not there should be of the Salmas Holocaust. The kavanah is on this that is on this Galaver that only the Eibush is behind this. It should bring out that the Eibush is not muchach in any inyanim, and everything that exists is in order, is all to express him, is all atom. The state of Kechev Vayitzim Yadi is not Kfiyah Kavanah, because the fact that everything is the ato, that's Herzach nicht. The Kavanah is that should be in his Galut. The Maamar, you can look at it as more breiter the word. Interessant, because if you listen to the, ich habe nicht gehört die ganze Hadron, but the one if you listen to Fabringen a little bit, mehr the Fabringen. No, it's I didn't listen to the whole to the end, but I'm saying because one part of the state is that that Kolzman, you see, when they went to Harat Seifin, so then quite a big day. But when they came to Shul, Azasar Churban, so they were Tzubracha. Azasar Helen Vester, we can make sense out of the Helen Vester of Etzem Churban Yerushalayim that we could see a mile, or we could fathom that Helen Vester. But then you see Helen Vester of Shul and Hulchu by Stamazay Sigmar Asada. Stamazay, there's a fox, Dreitz Charum. There's no, it's not a Tnu of Stamazay that it's the Kihil Makim Chayim. So it says Azasar Helen Vester only. So what did Akiva tell them? What did Akiva say? That Azasar Helen Vester calls man there was no such a Helen Vester can remain in that the Remi more is Gaber that they own is Gaber and Bimel there was a Churban. Azasar Helen Vester you can't mistake in the fact that it's him. Dafkim it said Eitzim Helen Vester. So you can't deny the fact that only the Eibush creates such Helen Vester, and that's B'Snicham Tanu that Saf Kosaf whatever. I don't know the Hemshach Barm the Sikha there. There was 600 in the Veda of the everything over there is mixed as of the beer of the Gemara with Yidden America. Shar Ferreide, but das Balbat and Heper das Teira. Come here. Okay. No, so the Rebbe says this word there that once as Be'etzem Helen Vehester, you can't deny already that it's him that's behind the Helen Vehester. And Saf Kosov, and this Galat, that's the Taken Mechuber in the Helen Vehester. It's also Chen that Aaron Sov is not Muchlich. Anyways, okay. Vina Pchin Lamayla Mala Dinket, Selam Acher Helim, Ados Lini Eitzer. There's a whole Nukud of Eitzer in the Moshel is, Shigam Hu Behelim. Signori of Helim. I mean, this Indian of Echelis Leila Hoyer, we're not dealing with the Kus comes in Gilu. Gilu is, he comes in Inyanim which Begoli express him. Tnuas Hablig Vol Begoli expresses the Lukus. Nes expresses the Lukus. Teva, his Amos, how does that express him? Now we can Zakman that there's Inyanim Ne'elam in a Lukus, which is expressed Dafke in the Tnu of Hell. It means the Ein Sof which is not Mugder in Gedra Gili, the Etzem, Vert Areis Gebracht, Dik Zecheis in dem was Shet Beis Amos. That the Tnu of his Amos expresses the Etzem, which is higher than Gili. dem wenn sich so machen wir so direkt beginnen gemacht in Tachlis als kann man was so jetzt so normal der Ket aber dies manche so machen
What are we supposed to giving us this with the hurt?
what's the giving us that we're able to megale even in a tacht and beyeser even a tacht and beyeser that gile der lang dort nicht that in a blig wo is out there that brings over here helm acher helm that there's clip in the toy of that the in a gile in a blig wo der lang dort nicht is totally in denial okay ich weiß mir alles das heile the only way to misaken sein ms in megale that der hesters ato that's the only way to fix this tacht beyeser mit gile kann man nicht ankommen rein. Yeah, I don't know, I'm saying what could be, I'm not saying it. In the Sikha, the Rebbe read as an equivalent. In the Sikha, the Rebbe speaks to that there is, if you listen to this, the Rebbe speaks to that there is being pale on the Matai, the Eir. There's the way Rabbi Shiur was pale on Zulas, and then there's in Yoni Rishus, Akiva Necham Tono of Msat Rosh Hashanah. Atam Afilu Shegigin, to be pale, even Nayida doesn't have any Shegi. As Asher Telem Bester, you still don't need to have a Psakeh Nifel. Then there is pale Zain of Hameinish Kela, Hameinish Shalem, to be pale by a Cheshach of Umasayla. That's a Tachne Beyeser. There with the Keach HaGilu, Kemenish Pils on Abzit. By a year, so the Helen of Esther is obviously like Gilu, you could work on it. Then you have Helen of Esther, Al Derech, like they were saying here, clip in the Teva Vayu, which is totally detached of it in a Gilu. It's an ununderstandable Helen of Esther. And in order to Uftan Dortna Zichach is that from the Keach HaEtzim, which is not Mugder in anything. And the truth is, that this Etzim, which in the Lovade, the whole Hester is the day mitzad. And mitzad that dafke mitzad the etzem, which is not mugder any tzir, is any the previous and outs. Also from that down the Hester. So Shal is, what type of keich do you have? You have the keich of the. If you have only a keich of the Eira Blikvo, so you're not going to be able to repel everywhere, because you have Azar Sert Cheshach, which is not mispal from the Eira Blikvo. Vestem Nishtirma. So even though he sees for a fact that he's totally in a nefesh, the per that's the kind that keich basing also this kind of it. And the Eibush has God was to Mishnah. There was 6 of them. By way, can have mitzvahs of days to be limited day, and to be pale even on a tacht beyeser, you need to have keich etzim, which the etzim is not mugder in any tzir, and he's the premise of everything. And even the chesha that exists, it's all him hiding himself. The chatzkul is nothing outside of him. But so that keich we can say Muhammad. Kinir in Avedis Adam we deal with Azach Sar Shloime as state was enough unconvinced beside Yechel Shleila Hoyer can say. We'll leave it to your imagination. No. Nicht much fear. No. Please, Shleime says but the Rebbe says first naf ani mit lamata mata den tach naf ani mit in air. The Pel Fika was made and I'm more when they get in of air. After air you have to also deal with the in Yanam of lamata mata. Huh? I'm saying, but last the Daldams is all the Lamada and the Kets is this Gal sets. So the Daldams are stated them. Can is Chmenish Nani Lamaz, I'm saying. Good. Zema, the Mazum chances on the come after Vision is one is of Kidakhan, come Kavana Shayadam, we will launch outs up. I have to be careful, I'm seeing over here on the video. Always going to usually the last when it comes to the last shit, Kane and Hatish can cancel Harrison. Can we read what's
Shloime, they also cut off the middle.
Come on, Gavana, he shall yodam yovelan shatzav. Shimon that's one Muhammad the Pale. Shcheni kram shim tzib savai. Yeah. Meitzis when it's around in the first commission, it's in Sraim Ksiv. The Yotzu Mir in Sraim, Al Tzavais, and Mazik, is Shim Tzib Hashem, as they were saying here. Same way it's in Sraim, but they were called Tzib Hashem. Make it in the first reason Shasat Keinu, the Vishan is Managolus. So it's also through the Veda of Yidden's being Tzibis Hashem. The Nitzuach HaMacham B'Payol, that's which is through the Malamah that gets is the Tzibis Havai. As every Yamot, the Yitzias Yisrael and Mitzrayim was connected to the Tnur, the fact that Yidden Tzibis Havai. Make an also love the Gula is going to be through the Veda of Tzibis Havai. What's the Veda of Tzibis Hashem? The Veda is mentioned on the Golus. The Yitzias Malchama is with the Eitz of Yerushalayim. Tzibas Hashem. Tzibas Hashem means that a chayo goes at Kabbalah Sil on Cheshbeinis. That's Eitz Shir Shemayim, which is in the Nefesh, and that makes the Yida Keli to the Eitz Shalamayla of the Lamayla Mada Adiketz. As the Iber Gemenkait without Cheshbeinis from his previous Nefesh to the Kus on Cheshbeinis is Nimshavim the Keach HaEtzem, which is Lamayla Mada Adiketz. Mit dem is im Nasech Melcham. Punkt das, wenn ich jetzt in Israel. the koyach lots is Messiah was because of the fact that Yidden were Tzivas Hashem. Al there's an Einu Zeh, the koyach after Menatzer Zayin is the Ma'ala Ma'ala Adin Ketz. A Yid should be a Keli to the Ma'ala Ma'ala Adin Ketz is through the Yirah Shemayim Shebenafshi, the Nekudas HaBittul, which he has Benefesh, as the Gitz Chibur on Cheshbenis to the Kavan. That's the koyach that he has the Ma'ala Ma'ala Adin Ketz. And then to the Etzem, which is also beyond Cheshbenis. Shadil Leichem Yitzh Shemayim Manasim Samachama. And then is the Bnei Yisrael Yisrael Drama, and then we should give him Korid Mamish. That's Maamar. So what you see that I'm saying, you look at the Fiat Rebbe Sif and look at how the Rebbe explains, how the Rebbe, the Inyan the Rebbe brings. You see that it's a whole different epistutzach the Inyanim. But let me just send. We should see the last line of the Fiat Rebbe Sif. Maybe it's kedai to. Cause Mekech and Savas is Lamas State Cave. Shem Shai spashed this bear. The fact that he gave him spashed this Adam the Yesher Chen, so Mekech and Sav Tafke. Al there's the fact that he can be Mailim is also Mekech and Sav. The Zel, the Savachan Atta Kel Mistat is this, and Sav Yivon State, and Mekech and Mamish. Shem Shai Chesed Kel, Yem Mekech and Gili, Mekech Gili Chesed Shem Kel, Mekech and Sam Mekech and Mamish. Zel, she was Krim, Mekech and Gili Farsi, was Mekech and Gili Krum, who is Mekech and Sav. But the Rebbe is not. But the Rebbe is madgish this word of the that the fact that the Keich Hagvol is the different from the Keich Hagili. The state that figure is not madgish in this in the etzem in the Ma'ala Ma'ala Adin Ketz that the Keich that to be be'elam is v'stedem Adin Ketz is mitzad also Keich Hagvol.
Because the figure doesn't say here yet that Maamar gets to the Oitzer, whereas the Rebbe already spells it
Right,
out.
what I'm saying with the Rebbe is Maz, but also the Rebbe is involved in the Maamar, how each shlav that the Fiat Rebbe brings, every prat that he brings here is negate to bring out the Ma'ala of the Ma'ala Ma'ala that gets. The fact that he's Maidach Rebbe negate to the fact that since he's not master of the Gabba the Elyon, that's Akdoma to what he wants to say weiter. It's not that Lam Reis. Pasha Sif is, even though he's not Begila, even though the truth is in Sif Shalagila, the Poyal heads of this issue. And there should be such a matzav is everything that's a lower hell of a hester. And Mele it's a higher Indian of the Ma'ala Ma'ala that gets. It's not in the Sif. The Rebbe's figure wasn't Kamal Kaveh Danim, but it's not Eizketay. We're saying every shlav brings out another Ilui of the Indian Ahelim. And the ultimate Ilui is that it's Hecher from Gedra Gidra Legani. Yeah, this is nice. I verstehen die Inyanim.
Was in it never is connected for more than scholars?
What do you mean? No. What do you mean I'm more than Zalas? That's in true of I'm more than Zalas.
Something before, but when the Rebbe brings more, right?
The Baal Shem Tov, yeah, that the fact that the Chibur of Helen and Gila is inside because through the tzitmet is Gala Be'etzim. It says in Shevat Legani. Yeah, I'm saying, I don't know if that's the pashtus of the Pshat. Pel Shteit does it, I don't know if that. The Rebbe brings in the Maamar Shevat Legani that the fact that there's Chibur Eres Zekelim is mitzad through tzimtzum versus Gala Be'etzim, versus Gala Be'etzim. And the Maamar is not Mugdar in Eir and Helen, will degree the Chibur Eres Zekelim. I don't know, it doesn't say it over here, that's for sure. It's saying, well, the Muslim can say.
So before we speak about,
Saying what it sounds like is the Baal Shem Tov of the Magid. Baal Shem Tov is the etzem in of Ribi Alamis. So Baal Shem Tov brings B'nei since Marishan, the Aleph Atov, and then there's the Almond Cliffin. That's Ribi Alamis. That's supposed to bring out the Helam Acher Helam Adin Getz. And generally the Kavanah Selim is the Shila Gili. That's the Magid. Now in Pratim, what's the Helim and what's the B'Shila Gili in every level? That's when the Rebbe starts speaking the Hemshech, within the signal of Adiyah V'Alishanisi. That there is the Helam Mitzat Tzimtzum itself, means the Tzimtzum weight is in the Eir HaBligvul, the Tzimtzum the weight is in the Eir HaGvul, and the Tzimtzum weight is Kanasi, the Chenetesi Kamesi, and then there is the Tzimtzum which is not B'Shul HaGilu, and that's Dafke Damitis L'mayla Malad Ketz. That could be the Hemshech Advarim in the line.
When you say that part, about the whole, there's a Kiddush, B'zayah Tzimtzum.
Tzimtzum is fine.
He has Kefim already,
That Tzimtzum is not
B'zayah, the whole,
the Tzimtzum is not. The figure is Lashon there is the Ret and Tzimtzum as Mitzias V'yesh, not the follow as people. And it never stated them out that even that it's even mitzad the Zulas. I'm saying could be the word is. I'm saying something else. That the Rebbe wants to bring God, and that's a mile I think yes. The Rebbe says even though the Keich Vul, the Eir Vul is the Eir was also called Eir Vul, the Pele wasn't nirgash different Tzimtzum. Was the Tzimtzum aufgetan that the Eir Vul was nirgash? So that's a mile in Tzimtzum. Dafke durch Tzimtzum, the Eir Gvul was Nisgalit. And the Eir Gvul is connected to the fact that the Eibush is Amitis Ein Sof. The Rebbe says, because it's Ein Sof Ba'amitius, he's also Kelul Eir Gvul. So without Tzimtzum, so the Shariz gebracht Eir Gvul, then there wouldn't have been the beauty of the Amitis Ein Sof. The fact that Ein Sof Shlomus is the Kolam, and maybe it could even be in a Tzir of Gvul, mitzad lifnat Tzimtzum Gufe, it wouldn't be expressed. That's a mile in Tzimtzum.
In Beis Gil, we spoke about whole Indian, and specifically how for white Indian, how
Good, I
whole
know.
China. You said the whole word how Tziyurim, how the whole grade of Tziyurim, that the symptoms to show the Eibush not Mugba and Tziyur. Before you become bull, right?
Good, that's what I'm saying.
So I'm saying the last Kudah is
No.
taka higher than that.
Badi, Chalish has a whole higher in.
Last Kudah is taka.
Higher than that.
And
That's what I'm trying to say. Higher than the word that the Primis
not
Sahel
Mugba and
is.
Tziyur.
It's a higher in Bachlav. Atzmas any mochrach b'shum davar. As the Lashon of Legani Amar Aleph. That the Yechedesh Leila higher is that it brings out that Atzmas any mochrach b'shum davar. Doesn't have to make sense. Doesn't have to conform. As it ergavot. And now the kavana is that this that mizal the head and the helen that it's him behind it. That's something else. Not
Does that bring an Elix to it?
no, not the Shemila. As a villa. We're talking about there was bestätigt in Ilay. Does Gufas also he wants to be made. Come up, it's not a part of Ilay.
It's either on the system Arab on Arab legal.
What's the Ilay? That is an Ephraim of Eskalus Batsmusa. But there is a couple of Maamar that the Indian of the fact that Erkabib is Amos, the Lashon of the figure, we also hear the Lashon Eskalus Batsmusa. The fact that the Simpson, the Erkabib is Helen is because the air is the way it is inside the Mar. And inside the Mar, the air doesn't have to be Begillah. I think it's a stark Lashon in the Maamar Zayim Tafshin Yidal, I think. It says there's a stark Lashon that I don't remember exactly the bitu, but it's a strong bitu that that Simpson, it's the air the way it is inside the Keich Hamar, something like that. And it's the air the way it is inside the Mar, so the air, he doesn't have to be Begillah, doesn't have to be Nergesh with the Makabah. It's that the Eibush has Ein Sof and Meiler is a Begillah. That type of Gillah is not movable to the Gdarim of Gillah. Whatever, there's beauty for it, but that's...
That's the legal of the earth, that's the Mar.
That's the Aliyah Sa'ir Ba'amar. That's the air the way it is inside the Mar. Not the Tnuas HaLei Shalayla. It's the air the way it is inside the... Later there's even the Yechedesh Shalayla Har, it's not the that the Amit is Sheir Sha'ir, that it's inside the fact that the Mar is Yachal Har. Not the Kodesh Shalayla Har. There is the air the way the air is inside the Tzir of air. Then there's the air the way it is inside the fact that Atzvas is nice in himself, the Mila of Mar. The Mila could be beginning.
Milo Mar is a more of a scholars.
No, not the Mar. The Mila that it could be Meir. The Kodesh Ha'ir. There's a Mila of Gilui. And there's an inner that is not more to be Dafkin Etzim. It could be Mispashit. That Yecheles Mispashit, the way it is inside the Mar's point of view. That's an expression of the fact that he's in Sof. Because he's in Sof, it could also be Mispashit. I mean, so that Indian, the Tnuas Espashit is not movable to the Gdarim of Gilui, to the Agbolas of Gilui Mispashit.
What comes to the Simpsons is not similar to what we see in more of the scholars.
Why is it go to Marv's Gas? The Marv's Gas is that the Tnu of Etzim, that the Mar is this Gas. Can't say this. The air the way he is inside the Mar. There's Indian of Gilui. We're not talking about Mar now, which is Etzim higher than the whole Indian of Gilui. We're talking about there's an Indian of Elokus, could be the Gilui. So Gilui means that it can be felt and sensed by Nevraim. So there is the Gilui inside the gather of Gilui. Then there is, because the Eibush is Ein Sof, Ken Hashem be Gilui. The Ken Hashem be Gilui inside the fact that he's Ein Sof, the way it's inside the fact that he's Ein Sof, is not mukbal in the column of Gilui. We're not talking the Indian Gilui, not something else. But the Indian Gilui, the way it's inside the Keich Hamar. The last thing in Tafshin Dad Lashon is that Tzimtzum is the air was Nasalit, the way the air is Mikeich Hamar. I think that the Mar has Kama V'Kama Keiches. One of them is Keich HaGilui. I mean, it's that Indian, the Gilui is not to be Nergesh. Another Maamar also, this is I think in the Maamar Zayim, is a Shach Lashon. There's also, I think it's Kemet Seis Chatavshin Tazayim. There's also the Rebbe read the meaning there. That the Skalus Batsmusi is that the air, but there's a little different Lashon. That the air is misalit to Dargi B'Chelis. That's when you get to the Etzim of Tzimtzum. That's not Skalus or Batsmusi. That's all that you have to Gilui the way it is mitzad the Sheidish Mokre. But here the Rebbe is saying then there is a higher meaning than Gilui. You have the fact that the Gilui keeps him being Kalim. And then you have a chlal, there's Nishmukbal in the God's in Gilui. It's nothing.